For 23 years, a Los Angeles police detective solved other people's murders. The entire time, she'd already gotten away with one of her own. Her name was Stephanie Lazarus, sharp and respected. She worked robbery. She worked art theft. She interrogated suspects for a living, and the whole time, just down the hall, sat a murder file with her own name buried inside it. This isn't a movie. This actually happened to a 29-year-old nurse named Sherri Rasmussen, murdered in 1986. How the Lapt finally caught one of their own is one of the strangest true crime stories I've ever told. Stay with me. Rewind to late 1985. Sherri Rasmussen is 29, thriving, the critical care nursing director at a Los Angeles area hospital, a job that takes real skill under real pressure. She's just married a man named John Rutten, and the two of them move into a condo in Van Nuys. 4 months later, she's dead, found beaten and shot inside that same condo. Lapt's first theory: a burglary gone wrong. There'd been break-ins nearby, so detectives assumed she'd walked in on one. No suspect was identified. No arrest was made. The case went cold. But here's what never sat right with Sherri's family. And it shouldn't sit right with you either. Her father told police, almost immediately, that his daughter had a rival, Stephanie Lazarus, John's ex-girlfriend from college, and an Lapt patrol officer. He said she'd confronted Sherri before the wedding. Years later, Rutten confirmed he'd given detectives Lazarus's name back in 1986. That conversation was never written down. Think about that. The right name was on the table on day one, and it just disappeared. Fast forward to the early 2000s. The Lapid's Cold Case Unit reopens the file as part of a broader push to revisit old, unsolved murders. Sitting untouched in evidence for nearly 20 years is a saliva sample from a bite mark on Rasmussen's arm. Useless in 1986, since DNA testing like this didn't exist yet. In 2003, they finally run it. The result rewrites the entire case. The saliva doesn't belong to a man. It belongs to a woman. That obliterates the burglary theory. Detectives go back to the family and build a short list of 5 women close to Rasmussen or Rutten at the time. One by one, 4 are cleared through DNA. The 5th name left standing is Stephanie Lazarus. Except now she isn't just a name in a file. She's an active Lapt detective working art theft, down the hall from the people building a case against her. So here's the problem. How do you get a DNA sample from a trained detective without tipping her off? You can't just ask. That ends this instantly. So a covert surveillance team gets an assignment few cops ever get. Quietly follow a fellow detective and wait for the moment she hands over the thing that could convict her. Before I show you how they pulled that off, because it's one of the more clever, nerve-wracking moves I've come across in true crime. Quick pause. If you prefer true crime that waits for the truth instead of guessing at it, hit subscribe. More cases like this one are coming. May 2009. The surveillance team finally gets what they need. On a completely ordinary day, Lazarus, with no idea she's being watched, leaves behind something with her DNA on it. Nothing dramatic. Nothing she'd think twice about. Investigators rush it to the lab and run it against that decades-old saliva sample. It's a match. A few days later, on June 5th, Lazarus is called into a room at Lapt headquarters, told it's about something else entirely. She sits down across from detectives she probably recognizes, expecting a routine conversation. What she gets instead is a slow, careful interrogation about a murder she thought she'd buried in 1986. Video from that room later became public. At one point, visibly rattled, Lazarus asks if she's on candid camera. She's not joking. I keep coming back to that moment. A homicide detective who'd spent her career on the other side of that table, suddenly unable to process that the trap had closed around her. She's arrested that same day. 23 years, almost to the month, after Sherri Rasmussen died. 23 years of walking past people who had no idea who she really was. In 2012, a jury took only days to find Stephanie Lazarus guilty of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to 27 years to life, and in 2015, an appeals court upheld the conviction. For 3 decades, she denied any involvement. Then in 2023, during a parole hearing, she finally admitted what she'd done. That November, a parole panel found her suitable for release. But Governor Gavin Newsom raised concerns, saying she hadn't taken full responsibility until she was caught. The decision went back for review, and in October 2024, the board formally reversed it. She was denied parole again in February 2025, the most recent update, and remains in custody. What really gets me about this case isn't the murder itself, awful as it was. It's the 23 years in between. A father who named the right person almost immediately. A lead that vanished from a file with no explanation. A woman who spent 2 decades solving other people's crimes for the very department that was, slowly and quietly, closing in on hers. If this story pulled you in the way it pulled me in, tell me in the comments. I read every one. And if you're new here, subscribe. I tell stories like this the same careful way every time. I'll see you in the next one.